The explosion hit Tashkent like a sudden punch from the dark. At 10:47 p.m., most of Chalanzor was preparing for sleep. Lights dimmed, children already dreaming, elders sipping their final tea. Then the ground trembled. A deep, thunderous roar tore through the neighborhood, followed by a blinding orange flash that lit up the sky like dawn arriving too fast. People rushed to balconies, shouting names of relatives, some barefoot, some holding their phones with shaking hands. Mothers grabbed their children, dragging them away from the windows as shards of glass rained down onto the streets. Car alarms wailed in broken harmony, echoing through the narrow lanes. Within minutes, an army of fire engines, ambulances, and military transports stormed into the area. Smoke curled upward in massive black columns from the warehouse, staining the sky and drifting through the air with an acrid, metallic smell. Reporter Madinabonu arrived on her motorbike, parking far enough to avoid the flames but close enough to feel their heat against her face. She clutched her microphone, trying to steady her racing heartbeat. The glow of the fire reflected in her eyes as she filmed the chaos: firefighters shouting instructions, paramedics carrying out injured workers, neighbors crying while trying to understand what had happened. An elderly man in a long gray coat stumbled toward her, coughing as he waved away the smoke. I saw it," he stammered. There was a thundering crack. The wall shook like an earthquake. I thought the whole block would fall." His voice broke. Madinabonu gently steadied him by the arm. Behind them, another explosion, smaller but sharp, erupted from inside the warehouse, sending a shower of sparks into the night. The crowd gasped and stepped back as authorities shouted for people to evacuate the area. Blue and red lights flickered across the terrified faces of the residents. Every second felt heavier than the last, and as firefighters pushed deeper into the collapsing structure, everyone sensed the same chilling truth. This wasn't just an accident. Something far more dangerous had just awakened in Tashkent. Firefighters battled the blaze with relentless determination, but even as the flames shrank, the mystery inside the warehouse grew. When the last section of burning roof collapsed inward with a hiss of steam, a search unit wearing heat-resistant suits stepped inside. Their flashlights sliced through the thick smoke, illuminating warped metal shelves and charred concrete. Commander Jasher Rakimov followed closely behind them, his jaw clenched, his boots crunching over fragments of shattered equipment. He had seen industrial accidents before, but nothing here matched the typical pattern: no gas cylinders, no chemical containers, no signs of faulty wiring. Instead, he noticed the unnatural silence of the interior, the way certain objects seemed placed, not stored. "Careful," he warned his team, his voice echoing against the cavernous walls. "This doesn't look like a standard warehouse." One of the technicians knelt beside a half-melted crate and slowly pried it open. Inside, cushioned by thermal foam, were fragments of compact metallic devices, strange, scorched, and unfamiliar. They weren't tools. They weren't household appliances. They looked like parts of something more technical, more dangerous. "Sir," the technician whispered. "This is military-grade shielding. Not the kind used around here." Another crate was pried open. Inside lay more of the same: wires, circuit boards, energy cells with foreign serial codes burned into their cores. Jasher felt a cold knot tighten in his chest. "What kind of warehouse stores this?" he muttered. Just then, a faint red blinking light caught his attention near the back of the building. It pulsed weakly beneath a collapsed panel. Jasher approached it cautiously, brushing aside debris. A compact black device, singed but intact, lay on the floor. It wasn't a bomb. It was something else, something meant to trigger something larger. "Get this isolated," he ordered quickly. "Now." But before his men could move, a sudden gust of hot air surged through the warehouse, a pressure wave from deeper inside. The flames, thought to be under control, reignited in a bright flash, forcing everyone to retreat as a steel beam collapsed dangerously close to them. Outside, coughing from the smoke, Jasher watched the warehouse crackle and hiss, swallowing the evidence that had barely revealed itself. This was no accident, he whispered to himself, his eyes narrowing. Someone built something in there, and someone wanted it destroyed. Behind him, the night pressed in heavy and silent, as if the entire city was holding its breath, waiting for what came next. Across Tashkent, fear didn't spread like a rumor, it spread like wildfire. Within an hour of the explosion, videos shot from balconies and dash cams flooded social media. Clips of the fireball, the screaming, the sirens, the collapsing roof, all stitched together into a chaotic mosaic. By midnight, every major channel was reporting on the warehouse incident, but none offered answers. And when answers are missing, people create their own. In tea houses, in taxis, in telegram channels, whispered theories multiplied faster than the authorities could respond. It was a gas line, one man insisted. No, it was a drone strike, someone else replied. Didn't you see the smoke? That wasn't an ordinary fire. A group of university students huddled in a dorm room, analyzing the footage frame by frame, pointing out suspicious flashes and unexplained shadows. Their excitement masked a growing dread, the feeling that the city they knew so well suddenly felt like a stranger. Families locked their doors earlier than usual. Some packed emergency bags. Others sent voice messages to relatives abroad. We're okay for now. Don't worry, but something is wrong here. Supermarkets saw a sudden rush, shelves of bottled water, bread, and essentials emptied within minutes. Long lines stretched outside pharmacies as people feared chemical contamination, even though no official warning had been issued. Meanwhile, the government's brief statement, investigation ongoing, no need for panic, did little to calm anyone. If anything, its vagueness fueled the anxiety. In a small apartment on the 6th floor of a Soviet-era building, a young mother rocked her frightened child as distant sirens echoed through the city. "Sleep, my love," she whispered, though her own hands trembled. "Everything will be all right." But even she didn't believe her words. Taxi drivers forming night patrol groups to check on their neighborhoods. Shopkeepers pulling down their shutters early. Elderly couples watching the news with the volume high, praying under their breath. Tashkent, usually full of life even after dark, seemed to dim, as though the explosion had blown out the city's spirit, leaving only uncertainty behind. And beneath the growing fear, another emotion simmered. Suspicion. Suspicion that someone was responsible. Suspicion that the truth was being hidden. Suspicion that more was coming. As the hours passed, the city's whispers became a single, shared fear. This wasn't the end. Something else is waiting. Madinabonu sat alone in the cramped editing room of her small newsroom, illuminated only by the pale glow of her laptop screen. Her hands were still trembling from everything she had witnessed, the flames, the screams, the strange crates, the second explosion. The footage felt too heavy, as if each frame carried a secret waiting to break free. She scrubbed through the video slowly, frame by frame. Most of it was chaos, flashing lights, shouting firefighters, smoke swirling like a living creature. But then she paused. There it was. For less than a second, in the corner of the warehouse entrance, a silhouette appeared, tall, steady, too calm for the situation. The figure stood with hands behind their back, observing the fire as if expecting it. Madinabonu zoomed in. The image pixelated, but she could still make out a faint glint on the person's hand, a metallic emblem shaped like a bird. Before she could examine it further, her email notification pinged. She frowned. It was nearly 1 a.m. Who would message her now? The subject line froze her pulse. Delete your footage before you regret it. Her throat tightened. She clicked the email open. No sender name, no signature, just a single line of text. You filmed what you shouldn't have. Take it down before dawn. The cursor blinked at the end of the sentence, as if waiting for her reply. Madinabonu swallowed hard. Her newsroom was silent, the other reporters had gone home, and even the security guard had stepped outside for tea. She felt truly alone for the first time since arriving at the explosion site. Then her phone vibrated. A new message. Unknown number. This is your final warning. Her skin prickled. She glanced around the dim room. The narrow hallway outside suddenly felt too long, too empty, too quiet. Another message arrived instantly. We are watching. Her breath hitched. She clicked through her footage again, heart pounding. Was there someone following her at the scene? Was she seen filming that shadowy figure? Was she in danger? The computer fan hummed loudly, or maybe it just sounded loud because the silence was overwhelming her. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. Inside, fear tightened around her like a fist. She closed the laptop slowly, her reflection tremoring on the dark screen. Whatever she captured wasn't just evidence. It was a threat, a warning, a secret someone was willing to destroy her to keep hidden. And in that moment, she realized something chilling. The explosion wasn't the biggest danger. The truth behind it was. The following day, Tashkent woke under a gray, heavy sky, the kind that made even early morning feel like dusk. The city, usually humming with the sound of buses, vendors, and schoolchildren, felt muted. As if everyone was speaking softer, moving slower, afraid to disturb whatever unseen force now lingered over them. Roadblocks had appeared overnight. Police officers in dark uniforms stood beside armored vehicles, checking every passing car. People watched from apartment balconies, whispering nervously as drones buzzed overhead, scanning the scorched ruins of the warehouse district. Inside the crisis center, officials held an emergency briefing, but their carefully worded announcement only deepened the unease. Investigation is ongoing. Citizens are urged to remain calm. Avoid spreading unverified information. But nobody believed calm was possible anymore. In tea stalls and open-air markets, people exchanged rumors instead of greetings. Shop owners turned on their radios, waiting for updates that never came. Women gathered in stairwells, huddled close, discussing whether to keep their children home from school. Elderly men sat on benches, watching the flickering red lights of emergency vehicles pass by again and again. Madinabonu, exhausted from a sleepless night, walked through the streets with her camera bag hugged tightly against her chest. Every sound made her jump: the clatter of a closing shop shutter, the abrupt honk of a car, the rhythmic chop of helicopter blades overhead. She reached a public square where residents had gathered despite warnings. Their faces were drawn, pale, etched with fear and frustration. "Why aren't they telling us the truth?" a woman murmured. "If it was an accident, why so many soldiers?" "My cousin in another district said they heard 2 blasts, not 1, a man insisted. And they saw trucks arriving at midnight." "Something is wrong," whispered another. "We all feel it." Madinabonu lifted her camera instinctively, then lowered it just as quickly. The warning messages still echoed in her mind. "We are watching." Even the air felt different, like the city was bracing for something unseen. Commander Jasher stood near the barricades across town, watching his team sift through debris. They moved carefully, lifting melted pieces of machinery, collecting twisted metal fragments into labeled containers. Every new discovery made Jasher's unease grow. He glanced at the sky. Thick smoke still lingered like a bruise hanging over the skyline. He could feel it in his bones. This wasn't the aftermath. This was the beginning. As evening approached, the call to prayer echoed softly over the rooftops, a momentary reminder of peace in a city that had forgotten how to breathe. People stopped, listened, prayed with more urgency than usual. And yet, beneath that spiritual calm, a new tension pulsed through Tashkent. A quiet dread, a shared intuition. Everyone, from government officials to mothers to taxi drivers, sensed it. The truth behind the explosion was still out there, and whatever it was would soon come crashing into the open. Tashkent was no longer waiting for answers. It was waiting for the next strike.